customers today, or consumers today, will go any place where somebody knows them and where somebody makes it easy. 360 customers per store on average. You can know every single one of them, and I suspect you do. Then all you got to do is make it easy. And they won't want to leave. Loyal, delighted customers, the ones you make go, wow, and they keep going, wow. And satisfied customers are not the same thing. Satisfied customers and loyal customers are not the same thing. One of the key differences is that loyal customers refer their friends and colleagues. Loyal customers refer their friends and colleagues. They talk about you. They tell others about you. Satisfied customers don't do that. Another interesting statistic, which some of you may have seen, 65 to 80% of customers who quit doing business with a retailer claim they were satisfied. 65 to 80% of the people who quit doing business with a retailer claim that they were satisfied. Think about that. I'm satisfied, I'm just leaving. Clearly, they weren't. Clearly, they weren't. Again, commendations to you. Your customers do claim they're satisfied, but that's not enough. What we really have to focus on are how can you become great? Even in the dichotomy world that you live in, how can you become great? Because great is what it takes. It's that 0.23 seconds that makes the difference. How can you make your customers go, wow, I love that? How can you get them talking about you? How do you delight your customers? What do you do today to delight them? It's not enough just to serve them. It's not enough just to get the merchandise in their house and get it set up. How do you delight them? How do you make them go, this really matters? What does your customer expect from you? I'm not in your business. I don't know. You need to. Because doing things that don't matter to your customer cost you a lot of money and get you no return. Not doing the things that matter to your customer cost you customers. So what matters to your customer, and how do you know? Are you still talking to customers? Or are you leaving that to the store managers now? Sam Walton built the largest retail chain in the world. He worked 5.5 days a week. 1/2 day, he was in the office looking at numbers. The other 5 days, he was in his stores, talking to customers, talking to salespeople, talking to his employees, and making sure he understood his business from the consumer's point of view. What are you doing with your time? You got 5 stores, you got 10 stores, you got to spend too much time now in the office looking at numbers? Don't think so. Get out of your office, get onto the floor, and make sure you personally know what matters to your consumers, what matters to your customers, what do they expect. And why do they expect that? Do they expect it because they saw an ad? Do they expect it because your competitor did it? Do they expect it because other retailers are doing it? Why do they expect what they're expecting? If you set that expectation in your advertising, you darn well better live up to it. If your competitors are raising the bar, you better pay attention. Because as I said in the beginning, consumers' demands are increasing. They're increasing because of other environments. They're increasing because of what your competitors are doing. They're increasing because of your own communications. How are you going to delight these people? How do you know if you've created loyal and delighted customers? How do you know? Now, I'm telling you to do it, but if you did everything, how would you know if you actually did it? How could you tell? Good question, glad I asked. We're going to go to school now for a few minutes, and I'm going to show you a very simple way to do it. You will not have to hire an outside firm to do this for you. You will not have to hire a consultant to do this for you. You will not have to invest in any complex software. In fact, you won't have to invest in any software at all. What I'm going to show you, if you're free to take notes, but it's all repeated on that webpage. So if you don't write the webpage down now, because you're not sure I'm going to tell you anything useful, don't worry. At the end, after you figure out what I did, I'll show you the webpage again. Right? Because it's complicated to describe. I want to make sure it's really clear, but even if you take really good notes, you still might want a reminder, so I put it up on a webpage. So I want to teach you about something called the ultimate question. I did not invent this. This was created by a guy named Fred Reichelt. So Fred is a fellow at Bain & Company, which is a big consulting firm. They have a fairly well-known today investment arm you may have heard of. But on the consulting side, they do a lot of things. And Fred focuses on customer loyalty. Fred is a recognized expert on customer loyalty. He's kind of like J.D. Powers, except he's not. He has been studying customer loyalty for about 30 years, maybe a little bit longer. Many of the things you've heard about loyal customers, they buy more often, they refer more, they pay higher prices, etc. Many of those things that you've heard over the years about loyal customers, his research proved that. That's what he used. He's written several books on customer loyalty. A number of years ago, Fred apparently got curious about whether there was a behavioral proxy for loyalty. In other words, loyal customers do a lot of things. They buy more often, they pay higher prices, they refer more. So they do lots of things. And in combination, they do that. The question he asked was, is there one thing that if I observe a customer doing that, I can conclude they are loyal? And he set about to do research to try to figure that out. And he started with some of the more obvious things. For example, loyal customers buy more often. When I travel, which is all the time, I almost always stay at either Hilton or one of their sub-brands, or Marriott or one of its sub-brands. Almost always. When I rent cars, I almost always rent a car from either Hertz or National. You could conclude from that behavior, I must be loyal to them. I couldn't care less. I get points. Points is good. I'm a bribed, apparently loyal customer. I'm not loyal at all. Those programs go away, I'm gone, man. Why did I pick those? Because they have lots of hotels at moderate prices in places I go to. That's all. But if the loyalty programs go away, I'm trying to share it with somebody else. I'm a bribed loyal customer. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I almost always fly on United or American. One could conclude from that I must be loyal to United or American. No, I hate them all. You fly often enough, you don't hate all. If I moved to Atlanta, I would suddenly appear to be loyal to Delta because that's who flies there. I am situationally loyal. So Fred quickly determined that a lot of these things about loyal customers were not sufficient. He then hit upon the idea that perhaps Willingness to refer might be a proxy for loyalty. And he developed this question. His research has found something very interesting about how people answer this question. To be fair, he has never, to this day, ever proven that how you answer this question demonstrates if you're loyal or not. And he never claimed he did. He discovered something I think might be a little bit more valuable. What he discovered was, based upon the calculation I'm going to show you, people who do well with this question, their businesses tend to grow faster than the competition. Oh darn, that's what we're trying to do. So I cannot tell you for sure that scoring well on this question is the same as loyalty. I can only tell you that scoring well on this question probably will correlate into you growing faster than your competitors in the future. That's why I'm showing it to you. And this is the question. On a scale of 0 to 10, what is the likelihood you would refer a friend or colleague to our store? Please note, it's a scale of 0 to 10, not 1 to 10. Now, why not 1 to 10? Well, when I asked the question on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely would you be? Did I explain to you which end of the scale was good? I didn't have to, did I? In truth, in Fred's question, he does tell you 10 is good and 0 is bad, but you don't really need to tell anybody that. But when you ask people to score on a scale of 1 to 10, and you tell them 1 is bad and 10 is good, some percentage of people forget which end of the scale is good. Fred figured that out, so he uses 0 to 10 so that people don't mess up their answer. So the scale is 0 to 10, not 1 to 10. So now I'm going to show you how you use the answer. By the way, just to be clear, in your stores, I would recommend that you ask people this question once or twice per year, not every visit. It becomes unknown. You can ask people this question by email, face-to-face, by snail mail, and you can combine the answers. There's no reason to believe that answers given by one medium or another are biased in one way or another. So do it the most convenient way for you. And I would tend to ask people this question, as I said, once or twice a year, depending upon what your turnover rate is with customers in your store. So now I want to teach you how to calculate your Net Promoter Score. Net Promoter is a trademark term owned by Fred and his company. So you can use Net Recommender, Net Referrer, but if you use Net Promoter, you have to put the little circle on it because he knows it. It's his. So, scores of 9 and 10 are positive referrers or positive recommenders. People who score you 9 or 10 really will refer you or recommend you given the opportunity to do so. If they don't have an opportunity to do so, they won't, but given the opportunity to do so, they will. Scores of 7 and 8 are neutral, or as I like to say, they are just being polite. They're not going to recommend you, they're not going to refer you, but they're not going to say anything bad about you either. They're just being polite. Leaving us people who score you 0 through 6. People who score you 0 through 6 are negative recommenders. They really will and they really do say bad things about you. They really do and they really will encourage people not to shop with you. So your goal in life is to increase the people who give you 9 and 10s and decrease the people who give you 0 through 6s. There are 2 ways to do that. Don't ask the people who would give you a 0 through 6. Or pay people to give you 9 through 10. If that's what you want to do, no problem. Let me know. I'll tell you that you got a high score. Give you a high score. or you can work hard to earn 9s and 10s and mitigate 0 through 6s, which we're going to talk about. So, the way you score it is you calculate the percentage of people who gave you a 9 or a 10, and you subtract from that the percentage of people who gave you 0 through 6. I'm going to do an example real quick so you can see how this works. Remember I told you we were going to school for. So here's our Net Promoter Score example. Let us assume that we asked 100 people to answer the question. Why 100? Because I can do the math in my head. I can convert everything to a percentage in my head. Not because 100 is a magic number. Let us assume that 70 people scored you a 9 or a 10. Let us then assume that 20 people scored you 7 or 8, leaving 10 people who scored you 0 through 6. So, if you followed my explanation on the PER page, you should then see that your Net Promoter Score is 70% positive, minus 10% negative, giving you a score of positive 60%. Is that clear how I did that? If it isn't, just ask me. My fault that I made it clear. So what? What does this mean? Well, let's talk about that for a second. First of all, if I was clear, you should realize your score could have been as low as minus 100% and as high as positive 100%, right? The range is not 0 to 100, it's minus 100 to plus 100. There are industries which score minus numbers. Mortgage bankers, automobile dealers, as an industry, score negative numbers. As an industry. So, what's a good score? So based upon Fred's research, what he found is that companies which score positive 70% or higher grow materially faster than do their competitors. Companies who score positive 60% or higher tend to grow faster than do their competitors. And companies which score 50% or less, not so good. Because if you're scoring 50%, you have just as many people complaining about you as bragging about you. And clearly negative numbers would be increasing. You should get at least a 65% response rate to this survey. It's a very simple survey. It's one question. Fred says if you don't get a 65% response rate, you need to assume that everybody who didn't respond, I'm going to say up to the 65%, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. Everybody who didn't respond, up to that 65%, scored you 0 through 6. It's a hard out. But it's his data, it's his math, he's what we use. Now, this is good. This will help you understand how you're doing. However, doesn't help you get better. Does not help you get better. So we recommend a second question. And the question can be phrased something like this. If you could get us to change one thing about our store or how we do business, such that if we did that, it would improve the score you gave us, what one thing would you ask us to do? The key here is to ask for one thing. Now, some of you are going, oh, I know what they're going to do, lower your prices. I have done this with a large number of retailers. The number of people who say lower your prices is trivial. You will get lots of answers, and they will cluster. The 80-20 rule is alive and well. You will get answers you can take action on, as opposed to lower your prices, or lower my payments, or whatever. You will get answers you can take action on. Even people who score you a 10 will give you an answer. I urge you, don't ask more than 2 questions. There is a tremendous amount of research which suggests that the more questions you ask in a survey, the lower your response rate will be, and it is non-linear. And at some point early, you end up only being answered by the people who love you and the people who hate you, which is not the majority of the people who do business with you. So stop at 2 questions. We like the second question because we want you to figure out how to get better. Knowing how you're doing is one thing. Getting better is critically important. So again, if you want a recap of it, it's up that web page right there. There's nothing to sell you on the web page. It's just there to recap in case you wanted notes. Got it? Somebody take a picture, which is pretty smart. So make sure you got it. Cool. All right. Question? So, cool. I told you got to get loyal customers. Now the question is, okay, how do I get loyal customers? How do I create loyal customers? What do I do? If I do all that wow stuff we talked about earlier, if I make it really great to do business with me, is that going to get loyal customers? Maybe. Maybe. But research has found there is one sure way, more so than other ways, to create loyal customers. Loyal customers are created by screwing up and fixing it. That is the #1 way loyal customers are created. However, let's remember, I never said to screw up more. You screw up enough. The operative word was fix it. As one of my bosses many years ago said, I have an opportunity for you here on the other end of this phone. And he handed me the phone, and it was a really pissed off customer. Look, would that we would be perfect, would that we would never make mistakes, and we strive every day with great merchants to get better and better and better. But we'll never be perfect because humans are involved. So fortunately and unfortunately, there are lots of opportunities for you to fix it. Which brings it on to, it's all about recovery. It's all about what you do to recover from the disorder. So, what is the most important aspect? What is the most important aspect of service recovery? What do you think? Yeah.
Acknowledging that you screwed up.
Acknowledge that you screwed up. That is very important. Yes, it is. Yes.
Follow through.
Follow through is also very, very important. Absolutely.
Speed.
You got it. Speed is the most important aspect. When it all comes down to it, what the customer cares about is how fast you fixed it, not as much about what you did. Yes, if you don't follow through, it isn't fixed. If you don't acknowledge that you have a problem, you're going to get off on the wrong foot. We'll talk about that in a minute. Those are both absolutely correct answers. But speed is what matters the most. Fix it fast. Fix it fast. In order to fix it fast, you can't be the one fixing it. Look, if a customer of yours has a problem, they talk to the assistant manager in the store and says, doesn't sound good. Let me talk to the manager about that. He'll be back tomorrow. And you talk to the manager about it, and the manager goes, okay. Let me talk to the regional person about that. That's not good. Let me talk to the owner about what we're doing about that. How long did that take? Too long. Too long. You want to fix it fast? You need empowered, trained, frontline people. If your frontline people cannot fix it the vast majority of the time, and I don't mean 50, I mean 99, you can't fix it fast. If you personally have to be involved in every fix, it's going to take too long. But don't worry, if you keep operating that way, My prediction is someday you'll be down to one store and then it'll be okay because you'll have time. You need to be too busy doing other things, and you need to empower your frontline people to do that. But empowering frontline people, it has its own challenges, because studies have found that 50% of the time what your frontline people do to fix it, make it worse. The first thing we need to train them to do is offer an apparently sincere apology. I don't care if you're sincere or not, it made a difference to me. They asked George Burns on his 90th birthday what the secret to success in life was, and he said, once you learn to fake sincerity, everything else is easy. Look, it's okay with me if it is sincere, it's also okay with me if it isn't sincere, as long as the customer feels like it was sincere. The first thing you want to do is apologize. Why? Because it's what the customer wants. When they ask customers what they want when things go wrong, the number one thing they want is an apology. Now, I have cleared this in all 50 states in the Union. But frankly, once I cleared it in California, I didn't have to worry about any other sane state. An apology is not an admission of guilt in any state in this union. I'm sorry and we are guilty are not the same phrase. And anybody who tells you we can't apologize because they can use that against us in court is wrong. Now, you don't want to do what Southwest Airlines did a number of years ago, where you send a letter saying, I'm sorry our flight attendants were such jerks and they did all these terrible things that they never should have done. That cost them $20 million. But I'm sorry is an acceptable thing to say. There's another reason why I want you to teach your people to apologize, aside from the fact that it's what the consumer wants, and that is, there are some people who shop with you, should be shopping at Rent-A-Center, because they are not customers you really want to keep. See, there are people who are legitimately upset when they come to see you. It doesn't mean it was your fault. It means they're legitimately upset. In other words, something did not go the way they wanted it to go, especially when it comes probably to being able to pay you. And they're upset. They are legitimately upset even though it may not be your fault. When somebody is legitimately upset and you apologize to them, they will calm down. Then there are people who I describe as being professionally upset. They get up on the wrong side of the bed every morning. Or they're out to cheat you, or they're just nasty human beings. If you want great people working for you, you can't have too many consumers like that couple, because they will beat your best people down. Those people need to be invited to shop elsewhere. You may not know this, but if you cause too much trouble at Nordstrom's, they will invite you not to shop there ever again. Now I know nobody's ever come home and said, guess what, dear, I got thrown out of Nordstrom's today. But every department manager in Nordstrom's has the power to encourage you to shop elsewhere and make it stick. Because professionally upset customers are not good for your store. When you apologize to a professionally upset customer, they don't calm down. They continue to be irritated and possibly to escalate. So if you teach your people to apologize first and the consumer does not calm down, that's when you want to bring a manager in or escalate it in some way. Because you do not want your frontline people to have to deal with professionally upset people, because it could be they're just having a really, really, really bad day. It could be that they're people you don't want to have shop with you anymore, but it needs a higher level of experience and skill to deal with. So that's why we apologize. What else does the customer want? What else does the customer want? Studies have found the customer does not want to feel like they're annoying anybody. They do not want to feel like they're annoying anybody. which most of the time we do. Several years ago, I was speaking at a conference in New Orleans, and I had some extra time on my hands, and so I went to the riverboat to gamble. And I got on the riverboat, spent a little time on there, donated a lot of money, and as I was coming off the riverboat, they were giving away glasses, not glasses, drinking glasses. They were really cool. I wonder if I could get like 2 of those, one for each of my kids. So as I was getting off the riverboat, I said to the guy, can I get a glass? And he said, you got one. You got one? I said, no, I didn't. You weren't here when I got it. Everybody got one when they got on. Well, he just turned his back again. Can't give us. So I got off the riverboat and thinking to myself, those glasses are really cool. And I'm probably never going to get 2 now. But maybe I can get 1. I know. I'll go back on the skies. So I went back on the riverboat in disguise. And as I come up to the guy, he says, you already got one when you got on the first time. I'm thinking to myself, these glasses can't cost more than 50 cents. What is the problem? He's not going to give me glasses. It's amazing. So I get off the riverboat. I'm walking back to my room, and I walk by a booth that says customer service. Stop. There's a young lady there doing her nails and reading magazine. So I'm waiting dutifully to not be annoying her so that she can help me. She finally looks up and says, yeah. And so I start explaining the thing to her. Her eyes just glaze over, and I realize I'm not going to get anywhere with this. And so I excuse myself, and I head on back to my room, and I'm walking through the lobby, and I'm thinking, this is just silly. And if nothing else, I'm going to get a great story, but this is just silly. So I go to the front desk, and I say, can I talk to the manager? And I don't want to be pulling him or her out of a meeting. It's not that critical. But if he or she is available, I wouldn't mind talking to him. And the guy said, yeah, I'll get her for you. And so she comes out. I explain my story to her. And you could just see this exasperated look come on her face. She looked at me. She said, I wish you were the only person who ever had it before I started. And I wish I could fix it. You have to understand that the casino operation and the hotel are owned by the same company, but our common boss is the chairman of the board. There is no connection between us anywhere else. Nothing I can do, other than to apologize for the idiots. Well, I felt worse for her than I did for me. I was only a glass anyway. And that was the end of it, right? Other than I still tell the story. But you notice I don't tell you the story. Because I'm not that mad about it. Not that mad. An apology and an understanding that it matters to you. And that I'm not annoying anybody like that young lady with her nail polish. The customer doesn't want to feel like it's their fault, even if it is. Yes, I know they didn't bring their payment in because they spent it on something else. Who else's fault could that be? If you make it about right and wrong, you will be right most of the time. Because that old expression, the customer's always right, is not true. The customer's usually wrong. But if you make it about right and wrong, you're going to lose the customer. And unless you want to lose the customer, don't make it about right and wrong. Make it about them not feeling like it's their fault. Because they don't want to feel stupid. Nobody wants to feel stupid. So don't let them feel stupid. And then after you've listened with interest to what the problem was, the best question to ask is, what can we do to make this right? What can we do to make this right? Some percentage of the time, you're going to get a lunatic who tells you, why don't you just cancel the rest of my payments and give this to me? Look, you don't have to. However, the vast majority of the time, what consumers ask for to make it right is less expensive than what you would have already done, and it's what they want. So it's a win-win. You spend less money, they get what they want. Loyal customers are created by fixing it fast with empowered frontline people. Look, if you really want to grow, you just have to remember a few simple things. Extraordinary results come from doing little things. Most companies have the big stuff figured out. Or it's the little stuff that matters a lot to the customer. That's what you want to focus on. Coin a phrase from an old movie: quality means never having to say or stop. Provide the customer the experience they want that they can't get anyplace else. It's not about the stuff. It's about the experience. Stanley Marcus, founder of Neiman Marcus, said you achieve customer satisfaction when you sell merchandise that doesn't come back to a customer who does. Given that over 70% of the merchandise you sell comes back, there's a lot of upside for you folks. More so than in other traditional retail. You've got lots of interesting upside in this business if you focus on a few things that matter. My dad was a rocket scientist for 45 years. He's looked at all the work I'm doing today, and this is what he has to say. This is not rocket science. It just isn't. So, I want to tell you a story and then leave you with a thought. So, I live in California, and California is a relatively new state compared to most states. And most of the stuff we have, other than some missions and some Adobes, is relatively modern. And we do things differently in California. And so when my family and I go on vacation, we oftentimes like to go to the eastern part of the country, southeast, east coast. And a few years back, we took the kids and we went to Cape Cod. Thank God I went to Cape Cod just before the season, because I had no idea the entire northeast corridor drives across one bridge on one day to get to Cape Cod. I discovered that when we were leaving because they were all lined up to Maine to get back to Cape Cod. So anyway, so we're on Cape Cod and we're having a good time. And one day we decided we're going to go to Martha's Vineyard. I'd never been to Martha's Vineyard before. I'd heard about it, but I'd never been there. So we got the kids and we got on the ferry and we went across the ferry and landed at Martha's Vineyard. Now, if you've ever been on that ferry and been to Martha's Vineyard, you know that when you land, one of the things that's right there at the dock is one of the oldest carousels in the country. Carousel being, the thing with horses that goes around. But the horses do not go up and down. It's not a merry-go-round. It's just a carousel. And I'd never seen a really old carousel before. And kids are riding on it. Some of the kids are really little, and their moms are standing next to them so that they don't fall off. And it's going around, and I noticed that the older kids, 8, 9, 10 years old, are grabbing something as they go by. And I'd never seen this before. They can't figure out what they're grabbing. So I look and I read some signs, and I realize they're grabbing rings out of a shoe, trying to win the brass ring. Because if you get the brass ring, you get a prize. Well, I've never seen anything like this before, but oh, maybe that's where that phrase comes from. This is kind of fascinating, and I'm watching some more. I'm easily amused. And I see this young child, he's probably 3, right? And he's like this, holding on to the post so that this wild horse he's on doesn't throw. Okay. Now his mom is standing right next to him. There's nothing bad ever going to happen to this kid because his mom is right there. She's not really paying attention to him that much, but he's not coming off the horse anyway, and she's right there. And he begins to notice that the kids in front of him are grabbing these rings. Now he has a dilemma. He needs to get a ring. But he can't let go! So I'm watching. His old man does this. His mom's oblivious to this one. I'm probably the only person watching because it's fascinating. I'm thinking, is this kid going to grab a ring before the carousel ride stops? Because I have no idea how long it is. And finally he grabs it. Now I would love to tell you it's happy ending, he got a brass ring. It didn't matter. Of course it wasn't a brass ring. There were very few brass rings. He achieved his goal by taking a risk that he didn't think he was capable of taking. He tried something he didn't think he could do, and found out he could do it. A lot of the stuff I'm talking about today, and a lot of the stuff you'll hear from others, will require you to let go of that post. And your mom's not standing there. You're going to have to let go of the post. But if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you got. So you need to let go of the post.